Here's a 5/16 double. It's funny. Don't use it like that. Okay, boys and girls, have I got a surprise for you. This is Gerber's brand new folding machete. They're calling it the Doubledown. They have a few different options. One's in black and one's in green. There may be a third, but it's a stonewash finish blade, 420, high carbon steel, blah, blah, blah. It's a folding machete, which is ridiculous. Let's just open it up so we can get an idea. There's a couple locks here to unwind it, and there we go. Lock it down on the bottom. Let's just get a look at this thing. Wow, why would you need this? I don't know, but it's cool, isn't it? I really just wanted this to see how they were gonna pull off all the locking mechanisms and the folding and everything. Just because it's not quite like any knife I've ever seen, and I think they're claiming it to be the first and only folding knife on the market. So let's just fold it back up here and see what we can start to take a look at. So let's just kind of go over some of the materials here. Let me get it locked back up. Over there. So the scales, 4 scales, look like they look to be injection molded. There's a draft on all the sides, although I can't find the gate, but they feel and look injection molded, I would imagine. Some sort of composite, you never know, they don't tell you. But so it's going to be 4 different part numbers, which is going to be a lot of different tools. They might have a family mold, or they'll do 4 different molds, but it's clean molding. Obviously it's brand new, so they're not going to have any issues, but you know, the parting line is going to be on the bottom here, so there's no flash. I'm not seeing any flash, which is nice. Everything's real clear, which is good. You know, sometimes these knives have a lot of flash on them, which you don't want. Now, let's take a look at the construction inside. So this is a stamped and formed inner piece. So that's one whole piece on each arm. So there's another piece there. We can see the stamping from the coining on the edge here. I think the blade is also stamped, although they buff the heck out of it so you can't see any breakage. But it seems like maybe there's just a tiny little draft, so there'd be a little breakage there. First thing you notice when you pull it out of the case is this lock, which is really stiff. So it kind of pops open. Let's do that again so I can get that on camera here. There is a little detent. It's a little finicky, isn't it? Come on. There we go. So it went in. Like I said, it's very tight. So if I pop it open, come on. Yep. So you'll notice that this handle actually went in. So it's in its lock state. It's actually open slightly. Wow. There we go. So you can see there's just a little bit of gap right in there. So if I pop it open, see how that blade moves? So it comes in just a little bit. So getting it back in to its spot is a little tricky. There we go. I'm sort of looking at it and the camera at the same time. So what holds it in is there's a tiny little, in the stamping, there's a piece that it's part of the whole arm, but it's heat treated and it's canted in. So that's your spring that's holding it in there. All right, so that's the lock when the whole tool's in its fully closed position. Now, so we're unlocked down here. So we got quite a bit more play, and this is where I was really interested to see how they were going to do this. So there's a little, I don't even know what you call it, maybe a trigger, and there's 4 of them, so there's 2 on each side, and what you do is you hold them, and then you can open it up. And what there is, let's see if I can get it. There's little holes that these fall into, and that's what's locking the entire thing. So here's the funny part. So if I push to open them and then I release them, I have this free space until I hit the first hole right there. See if I can get that on that audio. Right there. So I'm at that first detent, in or out. I can't smash my hands. But if I push these and then release them, again, I have, oops, see I clicked in there. I have, I don't know, 20 degrees or so of free movement, which obviously they can't get away from. And I could just slice my hand just by pushing on this thing. So we get past the first set of detents. We're still free, right there. Now we're clicked in. And then we gotta lock it again. So now that pin on the lock, there are detents. So we need to squeeze it together. And this it's stiff. And that's it's a reassuring lock. You're like, all right, I'm locked in. Okay, good. And now we're fully open. To release, again, it's pretty stiff, and what actually helps is squeezing the handle, because there's just a tiny bit of movement in there. So kind of squeeze it, that helps a little bit. So to close it again, we need to push our little triggers and keep holding them so you don't slice your fingers. There we go. Now, obviously, the question is, can I open it by only pressing half of the triggers? And you can actually get one arm out quite a bit. This one's still locked. These ones are open. If I do this side, a little bit, not as much. Okay, how long is this thing when we're extended? All right, so 15 3/8 end to end. It's a nice length. All right, we're about 9 inches just to the little end of our little swing lock there. The blade thickness, let's take a look here. Oops, on. All right, so 110 thou. It's decent. It's gonna hold up. Not too worried about that. Let's get a look at the blade profile. So it kind of sweeps in, down, and up. Obviously, we got to take this apart and see what's going on with the locks under it. Okay, so here's our little trigger locks, and there's the end of it that goes in the detent in the blade. You can see the detent below the stamping here in the blade. It's just a little rectangular hole, square hole maybe. And then here's the spring that looks like it's going to be difficult to put back together, but that's okay. Ah, I see. Okay, so it took me a minute. So the spring sits in there like that, and then it holds this down. So this is popped out, and that little torsion spring is pushing on it, so the trigger stays out. Let's take a look at this piece, if I can get it out. Oh, I wonder if that's pressed in there. Oh, sure. Okay, so it pivots on this little knurled pin, and the pin's pressed into the injection molding, and then there's clearance on this piece, so it freely floats on there. Interesting. Okay, so when I took it apart, obviously I had to take one of these pivot bolts out. And what I notice as I'm putting it back together is the tension that needs to be on these for this thing to work smoothly is it seems like a really small range. I'd imagine they probably have a little driver with a specified torque set on it. So if you got to take this apart, you're gonna finesse it back together. Just know that. But overall, the construction is pretty simple. This is the Baco Laplander. It's almost the same size. Wow, it's almost the same size in all directions. It's really close. I wonder if that was intentional or not. This obviously is just a folding saw, but kind of two similar tools, but very different purposes. Let's see, how thick is this thing? What? 920 thou. Width, see the handle width? 1.77. Up here is just under 2. Boy, I wonder how that would feel with gloves. Let's try closing and opening these things with some really beefy gloves. Oh yeah, it's not too bad. Well, it's easier on the thumb with gloves, that's for sure. Okay, well, I'm pleasantly surprised and pleased with that. Oops, why is it? What's going on here? There we go. You can still get to these triggers with a set of beefy leather gloves, so that's nice. You're not searching for it. You're going to want to put it in this way because at the bottom there's this opening. Okay, so everything slides nicely. If you put it in the other way, your lock that locks the whole thing together gets caught right there. It's going to rip that eventually. So just throw it in that way. Fits real nice. It's got Male on the back, typical made in China, sheath from Gerber. Nothing special. So